Have you ever felt spiritually distant? Like God or the divine or whatever you want to call that higher presence feels far away, hidden behind temple walls, locked inside rituals you don't fully understand? If you've ever felt that way, Chapter 9 of the Bhagavad Gita has something beautiful to tell you. And it's this: the divine is closer than you think. This chapter is often called the heart of the Gita. Krishna actually gives it a special name, Rajavidya, Rajaguhya, which means the king of knowledge, the king of secrets. It's the highest wisdom Krishna shares and also the most intimate. In this chapter, Krishna talks about three things: God's unconditional presence in our lives, the quiet power of devotion, and how spirituality isn't reserved for the perfect, the pure, or the priestly. It's available to absolutely everyone. So, if you've ever asked yourself, how do I actually connect with the divine in my everyday life? Not just on a retreat, not just at a temple, but in the middle of my regular, messy, busy day. This chapter is Krishna's answer. Let's walk through it together. Krishna opens this chapter almost like he's leaning in to share something precious. He tells Arjuna that what he's about to say is the highest, most secret knowledge. And because Arjuna isn't cynical, because he's open and trusting, Krishna is willing to share it fully. Now here's what's interesting. Krishna doesn't just call this wisdom sacred, he calls it practical, he calls it transformative. This isn't abstract philosophy meant to sit on a shelf and be admired, it's meant to be lived. But there's a catch. Krishna says this wisdom only works if you approach it with openness and faith. You can't just intellectually nod along. You actually have to let it change you. And that's our first takeaway. Spiritual wisdom is meant to be lived, not just admired. Think about how many of us collect spiritual quotes, save inspiring reels, nod along to wisdom, and then go right back to old habits 5 minutes later. Krishna is gently saying, that's not the point. Real transformation doesn't happen when you hear something wise. It happens when you actually practice it. Now, Krishna says something that honestly could change how you see your entire day. He says, all beings exist in me. Let that sit for a second. Not all beings exist near me, or all beings exist because of me somewhere far away. He says all beings exist in him. This means the divine isn't confined to a temple, an altar, or a sacred ritual performed at a certain time. God is present in your life, in nature, in your relationships, even within you right now as you're listening to this. So here's the takeaway. Spirituality isn't separation from life. It's actually seeing the sacred within life. You don't need to leave your ordinary world to find God. You need to look at your ordinary world differently. The conversation you're having with your mother, the walk you take after dinner, the way sunlight hits your kitchen table in the morning, all of it can become sacred, not because it changes, but because your awareness of it changes. Here Krishna describes something almost paradoxical. He says, the divine sustains all of creation, holds it up, nurtures it, supports it, but does so without ego, without attachment, without needing credit or control. It's like a parent who deeply loves their child, gives everything for that child, but doesn't suffocate them, doesn't need the child to perform a certain way to feel validated, loves fully but isn't attached to outcomes. And that becomes our takeaway. Act fully, but don't become emotionally trapped. This is such an important lesson for daily life. You can pour your heart into your work, your family, your goals, without your inner peace being hostage to how it all turns out. Care deeply, show up completely, But don't let your sense of self collapse if things don't go your way. It's the difference between loving something and being owned by it. Krishna gets a little more direct here. He says, people often misunderstand or even dismiss the divine because they judge only by outer appearances.
Think about how often we do this with people too, not just spiritually, but in everyday life. We see someone's job title, their clothes, their social media highlight reel, and we think we know who they are. We see the surface and assume that's the whole story. Krishna's point is when you only see the outer form, you miss the deeper truth underneath. So the takeaway here is simple but powerful. Truth is often deeper than appearances. Whether you're looking at a person, a situation, a hardship, or even your own life, what's on the surface is rarely the full picture. And now we get to one of the most touching teachings in the entire Gita. Krishna says, offer me a leaf, a flower, fruit, or even just water. If it's offered with devotion, I accept it. Think about how radical that is. He's not asking for elaborate temples, expensive offerings, or perfect rituals performed exactly right. He's saying a single leaf given with love matters more than a grand gesture given without heart. The takeaway, intention matters more than perfection. This is huge for those of us who feel like we're not spiritual enough, or not doing it right, or constantly falling short of some imagined standard. Krishna is telling us the divine isn't grading your performance. The divine is recognizing your sincerity. So a quick prayer said while you're stuck in traffic, a genuine moment of gratitude before a meal, a simple act of kindness done quietly with no audience. These small, sincere acts carry enormous meaning. You don't need grandeur, you need to mean it. Krishna continues with one of the most comforting promises in the Gita. He says that for those who think of him sincerely, he helps carry what they lack and preserves what they already have. In other words, if you're genuinely trying, genuinely seeking, genuinely devoted, you are supported. You're not carrying everything alone. And the takeaway is this: faith reduces fear. But here's an important nuance. Trust doesn't mean passivity. It doesn't mean you sit back and wait for things to magically fall into place while doing nothing. It means you stop carrying constant low-grade anxiety about everything. You do your part fully and sincerely, and then you release the white-knuckled grip of worry. You surrender the anxiety, not the effort. This is probably the most liberating part of the whole chapter. Krishna says, whatever you do, whether it's your work, your meals, what you give to others, how you serve, offer it with devotion. He's not saying you need to become a monk, leave your job, or sit in meditation for hours a day to be spiritual. He's saying your actual, ordinary, everyday life, cooking dinner, going to work, raising your kids, helping a friend, all of it can become a spiritual practice. Takeaway: daily life itself can become spiritual practice. Think about that in modern terms. A parent patiently helping their child with homework, with love and presence. That's spiritual. A teacher who shows up fully for their students even on a tiring day. That's spiritual. Someone cooking a meal with care for their family. That's spiritual. You don't need a special setting. You need a sincere heart in whatever you're already doing. Krishna closes this teaching with something beautifully simple. He says, think of me, be devoted to me. The highest connection to the divine doesn't come from complicated rituals. It comes through loving remembrance. And the takeaway here is profound. Spirituality is a relationship, not ritual alone. Just like any relationship, it grows through attention, through remembering, through small daily moments of connection, not through one big grand gesture once a year. Please, Like this video so more seekers like you can find it. Subscribe to the channel because this journey through the Bhagavad Gita is just beginning and every chapter holds something extraordinary waiting to be discovered. And share it with a friend, a family member, someone who is searching. You never know whose life a single teaching might quietly transform. Until next chapter, keep living with awareness, keep walking with intention. Namaste.